Hello, hello, friends. Can you believe it? It is the last full moon of 2024. And I know some of us might be like, yes, begone 2024, while others of us might be like, no, no, I am in no rush for 2025. Let us stretch out this time as long as we can. And wherever you're at, you are exactly where you're meant to be. But what
Yes.
this particular full moon wants to come in, this full moon under Gemini, actually really wants to help us with our personal alignment. And what the full moon wants to do is to help us focus back in on our personal alignment by helping us release distractions and helping us remember and reclaim the power of our personal discernment, the power we have to discern, to choose, to act. So, we're going to talk more about it. There's some interesting astrology, a lot of interesting astrology
Yes.
happening all the time right now, not just around the lunations themselves, but like all the time. And Sarah will talk a lot more to that. We're going to really focus in on Mars and Mercury, I believe, for this
Yeah.
particular lunation. But before we do that, let's just chat a little bit about Gemini, about what we might be feeling with this full moon, and also that beautiful dance between Gemini and Sagittarius. It's sibling sign. So, Gemini is the mutable air sign. Gemini is really well known for their curiosity, super inquisitive, so communicative. Like, Gemini loves to communicate. In fact, Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is the planet of communication and transportation and lots of some technology as well. But that communication part is like so very, very Gemini. Gemini is also very vibrant, very lively, very social. And I think that that social and curious and kind of like playful energy is actually very similar between Gemini and Sagittarius. I
Yes.
feel that with both of them. Now, on the shadow side, Gemini can be super distracted and like not so very focused. It could be like, "Ooh, there's a shiny thing." It reminds me of the dog from Up, who was like, "Squirrel." You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that is the
Yeah.
energy of Gemini. Like, "Squirrel, shiny
Hmm.
thing. What's that?" Like,
Constantly
yep.
changing. Yeah.
Yep. That I mean that's that mutable energy too, that kind of adaptable
Right.
energy.
And
Um,
air, like we're moving
oh
fast
yeah.
already, and then
Yeah.
mutable, we're really flying.
Yeah, yeah. And what's kind of cool about Gemini, it kind of reminds me a little bit for those who are familiar with human design, Gemini energy reminds me a lot of that manifesting generator energy,
Mm.
which is this energy of I get really kind of hyper focused on something. I want to be all in, but when I'm done, I'm done. And I
Yeah.
don't want to do it again. I want to move on to something else. Oh, is that you?
That's me. There's no, yeah, it's empty, it's not going to push through. It's we're done.
Yeah, yeah. And Gemini kind of reminds me of that. Now, that's not that I don't see that as light or shadow. I think that's just kind of just
Just
about
is.
focus, just
Yeah.
how we enjoy to focus. Interestingly enough, I think Gemini also can have a tendency in more of its shadow side to kind of stay a little shallow, to just kind of get like the basic things. Like it would be like the whole like just reading the headlines, but not actually reading the articles for what's actually in there, like the depths of it. That can be kind of Gemini. Like I'm just gonna breeze, skim over the top, but I don't actually want to go deeper deeper
Yeah.
into the understanding. And that can be a bit of the shadow expression of Gemini as well.
It's it loves the little details rather than
Yeah.
looking at the whole big picture. Sagittarius is more like,
Yes.
let's understand the whole big picture, what's going on, deep meaning. And Gemini is kind of like, let's just scatter through a little bit and pick up the things that the highlights and then move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And during this full moon, we kind of have this interesting dance between those two energies because that's what a full moon is. A full moon is when the sun is shining directly on the moon because Earth is not in the way. So we have that sun in Sagittarius, that archer and that like shoot toward the moon and what are the big dreams and big ideas and big visions. And then we have the moon in Gemini that's like, yeah, 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 that all's really big. Like what's happening right here, right now? What's entertaining me right now? Who am I talking to? Right? Like
Right.
it's more of that mundane, daily, nitty-gritty kind of energy. And so there is a bit of the balance between that kind of expanded vision and that kind of hyper focused what's the word I'm looking for? detail or like hyper focused follow through in some ways.
Right, right. What's
Um,
interesting about that too is we actually have Mercury also
yeah.
in Sagittarius right now
Yep.
and Jupiter in Gemini. And Jupiter rules Gemini and Mercury rules, I mean, sorry, Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Mercury rules Gemini. And so what we call in that case is it's called mutual reception. And
Mm,
so both of them are actually kind of uncomfy in each of those signs because Jupiter loves to be big and it's in a space where it's like, ah, look at the little
yeah.
details. So when they're in mutual reception, they usually help each other out. However, both of them are retrograding, especially when they're in opposition. So it just feels kind of doubly awkward is the word I want to say of like this
Yeah.
push-pull energy, trying to figure it out. Like I know that I think Jupiter and Mercury were opposite either yesterday. Yeah, I think it was yesterday. And yesterday I just like could not see the big picture. I was just like, or it was like all the big picture, like if I can't do this, then that means then I failed my life,
Oh,
or just getting like really overwhelmed, like
yeah.
one little thing would just lead to everything, or I would just get high. Like it wasn't cohesive of both, of like, oh, I
Right.
can see how me doing this little thing will lead to this later. It was like a catastrophe
Yeah.
of everything coming together.
It
So
kind of
felt a little
remind,
awkward.
yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of that, like the overwhelm we can get with all the little details, and then the
Yeah,
overwhelm we can get when we have the bigger picture but don't know how to get there too. You know what I mean? It's like both.
right. It's like
Which
somehow it feels both. Yeah.
Which honestly, like in my personal life and both of our personal lives, because we're working on this together, that hits so well
Yeah.
because of what we're doing with creating our Intuitive Moon community. Just so you guys know, there's gonna be a lot more coming on that come January. You guys will actually be able to come joining in. But we're doing a lot of like the nitty gritty. We've been working on the big vision for months. Now we're working
Right.
on all the little nitty gritties, and it is both very exciting and overwhelming
Overwhelming.
at the same time. At the
Right.
same time.
Right.
And that just speaks to human complexity.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I love working with the moon because the moon reminds us that we are complex, feeling, moving beings.
And especially a moon in Gemini, which is all about practicing duality. Two things at
Mm,
once, two opposing ideas at once, two opposing feelings
yes.
at once that make us want to, ah,
Yes. I actually love that because I know I've heard in the past, oh, you can't feel two emotions at the same time. And I mean, listen, I'm a Cancer Sun, Cancer rising. I'm like, no, 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 no. I can feel many emotions at the same
yeah,
time. I can feel intense love and judgment at the same time sometimes. You know what I
I
mean?
do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that we can speak to, I mean, I think Gemini, we're talking about the duality. I often, when we think about Gemini, which is represented by the twins, right? Like we often think about that voice of the ego versus the voice of the higher self, or maybe even the physical body versus the more spiritual body. I think some people like to consider it as like the angel or the devil on the shoulder, That's the more traditional
Right.
idea of that duality. To me, Gemini is less the angel and the devil and more the body and the mind.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's like it's really taking the word versus out and replacing it with
Mm.
and.
Yeah.
You know,
Ooh.
devil and the angel, and they're both talking to you. They're both there for a
Yeah.
reason. And why are they saying the things that they're saying? Your ego is important too.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
is it piping up right now? So I
Yeah.
feel like it's instead of verses or picking one, it's like, how can I have both of them be in the same
Well,
room?
and that's so interesting that you just said that, as opposed to picking one, because the theme of this full moon is actually about discernment, which is about choosing, picking one from the other, right? And I was looking up the definition of discernment when it became very clear that discernment was a big theme in this full moon. And it was interesting to me because the way most of like the Oxford Dictionary define it is like a thoughtful judgment between options, something like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. But that's when we're looking at a discernment from just a mental standpoint, which can be
Hmm.
very Gemini. I mean, air is representative of the mental energy of our minds. But when I think of discernment, I really think about it more as in like a body response.
Mm. Hmm.
These days, when I really go into the energy of discernment, it's not about my thoughts about which one I want to choose. It's about in my body, what is feeling the most aligned. Now, of course, this takes time and practice to learn how to feel into your body's yes versus no. And this is something that I teach to my clients and to my students in intuitive magic, because this is part of how we connect with that inner guidance system of our intuition is by going into the body and learning how the body communicates. But for me now, discernment is more of a body connection than it is a mind connection.
Right. A logical
Right.
thought process, right?
And when I was feeling it intuitively for this full moon as well, and it became very clear that this theme was really around discernment, what my guides were sharing with me is that discernment is really about remembering the power of our choice, the power of free will that each one of us truly have. And so discernment is almost a tool of our free will. Not almost is.
In it.
Discernment
Yeah.
is.
It's what our free will is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in order for us to really be authentically aligned with the free will of our soul, which is a higher
Mm,
self, that higher consciousness, we have to practice discernment.
right.
And I do believe that this full moon is going to help us do that by helping us release so much of the mental clutter and the distraction that is everywhere right now.
Yeah.
And listen, the world is on fire. So it's pretty distracting. It's
Yeah.
very distracting. And it's one of those situations where it can feel as though, whoa, it's super distracting. I obviously care about this. I have no control over it. Yet, what's so interesting about what I see happening in the world right now, and we're filming this on Thursday, December 5th, the first few days of December have been quite interesting.
We got a few
So,
more interesting days to go.
oh my gosh, yeah. And this is just like Pluto's been in Aquarius for like a week. No,
Yeah.
a month now, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Nah, a
Not
few weeks.
a few
Yeah.
weeks, yeah, but it's happening.
Just the beginning.
It's just beginning, yeah. So for on the personal level, I really feel like this full moon is helping us illuminate what are the distractions keeping us away from our alignment and helping us to release those. But on the collective level, it does feel like it's a bit more of this energy of remembering kind of the power of the people, the power of our choice, the power of our free will,
Mm.
which is still, riding the wave of that Pluto move into Aquarius. But
Well, yeah,
it's the power of our
absolutely.
discernment as a collective in what we accept or not based on the choices we've made in so many
Yes,
ways.
exactly. And also, I can't remember if it's something you said or something someone else said, but something about radical acceptance
Oh, yeah.
of where we're at and still staying true to who we are and,
Yeah.
still choosing joy and gratitude in these spaces that look nothing like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's so
I
revolutionary, honestly.
it
Our
really
joy
is.
becomes a revolution during a time when they want us to be afraid.
It reminds me of, have you seen I mean, in any version of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas,
Mm,
he steals all the toys and yet all the Who's come out and they still come together and sing their little song. And he's like, "What?" And that's kind of what this energy feels like to me of just
yeah.
like, okay, we have the Grinch who's running our country. Um,
Not yet.
but we,
Not yet.
not yet. But we can also come together and hold hands and sing our song and be like, these are the cards we've been dealt, but we're still not gonna lose our joy and
Yeah.
lose our power over this. We're just gonna kind of regroup and be like, okay, well, these are the circumstances. How can we still show up in
Yeah.
authenticity?
Yeah, I mean, from the energy medicine perspective, what we say is that, a lot of times we talk about, oh, people getting into our field or, taking our energy. And what we have to understand from an energy medicinist perspective is we're allowing them to.
Mm,
We are
right.
allowing them to. So when it comes to our personal power, that is always ours. The only ones who can give that up is ourselves when it
Yes.
comes to personal power, which is what I believe true power actually is.
Yeah.
Um, the transactional power that we're unfortunately so beholden to in the society right now, that is literally what we're trying to move away from. And I think that's part of why we're seeing what we're seeing in the world right now is
Yeah.
so that we can remember what true power is, which is not power over others. It's really about personal power. And again, that is ours. And we are the only ones who can give it away.
Yeah. That's actually, a big theme for 2025, the astrology of 2025. So
Ooh,
come back to us. Raquel and I will be doing a video on that.
yes, we
So,
will.
just know it's a big theme for 2025. So this is just a little taste of
Ooh, I
that.
love
And
that.
yeah,
I didn't even
I
know
have
that, but I
things.
love it.
You knew
So
it deep down.
I probably did, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just chat briefly about some of the astrology around the lunation. I mean, obviously, we have the moon in Gemini, we have the sun in Sagittarius, we have Mercury that was retrograding in Sagittarius, but interestingly enough, Mercury, who rules Gemini, is going direct on the same day
Two
of,
hours later.
yeah, like just a few, I love that, 2 hours after the full moon, Mercury stations direct. So during the actual most full part of this full moon. It will still be in retrograde.
Well, actually, there's a moment in between a retrograde and going direct that the planet actually stands
Just
still.
stops. Ooh, that's
And it's
right.
actually the most powerful at that point because that's when it's the
Okay.
closest to Earth. So it's shouting at us.
Oh,
Yeah.
so that'll be right when we have like the fullest moment of this full moon too. Ooh, I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That
It's
feels
a
very
powerful Gemini
supportive.
energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that Mercury stationing direct really helps us get clearer again on that power we have of discernment. With Mercury being in retrograde, we might have felt a little foggy over the last few weeks, especially when it comes to our ability to communicate, some of our thought processes, that kind of thing. And so with it
Scattered.
stationing, yeah, with it stationing direct, we might all of a sudden be like, "Woo, clarity! Yay! Where you been?" You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um,
Yes.
we also have another interesting transit that's a little less supportive, a little bit more challenging with this lunation, which is Mars being retrograde. And Sarah, I would love for you to share with us a little bit more about that.
Yes. So Mars stations retrograde on December 6th or 7th, depending on where you are in the world. Mars retrogrades once every 2 years, so it's not like super rare, but it doesn't happen every year. Like Mercury retrograde happens 3 times a year, and the outer planets happen every year. So yeah, I feel like it's one of the more rare retrogrades. I feel like it gets a lot of, airtime because yes, Mars rules our physical energy and our bodies, and everyone wants to just go, go, go. So we don't
Yeah.
like to be slowed down. We don't like our energy to
Well,
dwindle.
and I think about Mars, I kind of think about the patriarchy in some ways. I definitely
Yeah, I
think about the
mean,
masculine energy, and I know most of the world has been really running a bit in the imbalance side of running a ton of masculine energy as well.
right,
So, yeah,
right. But I mean, retrogrades are all about taking a moment to slow down and reassess,
yeah,
which is so freaking necessary in order to actually move forward with confidence and alignment. Because if you don't take a moment to stop and look at what you've done, you might be going on the wrong path. And so it's nice to rein it in, especially when it lines up with winter season.
yeah, yeah,
Hello, the leaves are falling off. It's time, the trees are doing what the universe is asking us to do right now, which is to look inside and slow down.
yep,
Um, Now, Mercury retrograde is more about looking at our mindsets, mental patterns, psychological patterns, things like that. Um, Mars is really about reassessing our motivations, our
yeah,
desires, and the actions about how we get them. So it's really about what we want
yeah.
and how we go after it, which is,
Mm,
again, such perfect timing for this time of year. I know a lot of people like to make New Year's resolutions. I personally don't like to make them at this time. I like to
yeah,
make them closer to spring where things feel fresh.
yeah,
But it's not a bad time to be reflecting and thinking about these things and Capricorn energy does, once we get into Capricorn season,
yeah,
has us thinking about the long term. Um, Maybe not taking action yet. If you feel like it, go for it. But I'm just saying, if you don't feel like it, don't force yourself to try and make these goals just because everybody's like new year, new me, new whatever the saying is.
yeah,
So Mars retrograde is just really about reassessing. Um, and it's going to be in Leo for the first part of it. It's going to be there till February 24th, y'all. So
yeah. Mars
it's a
being in
long
retrograde,
time.
but how
Mars.
long will Mars be retrograde in Leo? Like, because I know it's also going to be moving back into Cancer for a bit too.
Yes. So I have that date right
Okay.
here. So Mars will be in Leo it's already there now, and it'll
Yeah.
be there until January 6th.
Okay.
And then
Interesting.
yeah, so for the rest of the year, it's in Leo, which when it's in Leo, it has us really reflecting on our creative
Yeah.
processes, our self-expression. We're really going to be looking at how our ego gets tied into the way we're taking action.
Hmm.
Um,
I'm
it
already
also,
feeling that, man. I'm totally
right?
feeling that.
It's important. And it also is going to have us kind of reflecting on like, what am I doing and why am I doing it? And how can I add more play and
Yes.
joy and
Yes.
inner child needs into what I'm doing,
I was
into my
literally having this
creativity.
conversation this morning. Like literally this exact conversation. I was like,
It's
I just want to like I like what I'm doing. I just want to make it more fun. You know what I
perfect. You're ahead of the
mean?
times.
Well,
Yeah.
that's my cardinal energy.
Yeah.
Plus my
Um,
intuition.
and your intuition, exactly. So yeah, on January 6th, it'll move into Cancer
Yeah.
and it'll still be retrograding. So
Yep.
it'll go to like the earlier stages of Cancer and it'll actually stay in Cancer until April,
Oh
like
my
once it moves forward
God.
again.
That's my
And
first house.
Mars
My
doesn't like being there
I
either. Not in your
know.
first house, but I mean in Cancer.
Yeah, yeah. It's my sun, my rising, my
Yeah.
Venus is up in there.
Yeah. Girl, I get it. I get it. So Mars retrograding in Cancer is really all about reassessing our emotional stability. Like,
Ah,
I know it sounds horrible, but by the end, we're going to be like, oh, I know what I need to be grounded in my
yeah.
emotions. How can I, like you were talking about, use your emotions, use your feelings in your body as a tool
Yeah,
rather than,
I actually feel like it can be quite healing to have Mars in
absolutely.
retrograde in
Yeah.
Cancer, with the
Yeah.
emotions because otherwise Mars is kind of having us rush through our emotions and maybe not even feel our emotions in a lot of ways because
Exactly.
it can just get in the way of our action. Um,
Right.
so I think this is actually an opportunity for us to do some really beautiful transmutation.
Yes. Exactly. I mean, I love growth. So anything in the name of growth, I'm all for. Um, yeah, and I mean, by the end, I feel like we are going to be really in touch with ourselves and our needs. Like, if you're
Yeah.
someone who is like, you know what, I need a lot more alone time, or I need someone who can give me support, or I really need to connect to my why again. Like, this
Yeah.
is going to be a time that does that. And by the end, I feel like we're really going to be in tune with our motivations, which is powerful, which really has
Yes.
to do with this full moon about understanding our discernment, like we've
Yes,
been
I was
saying.
just going to say that. I was just going to
Yeah,
say that brings it full circle back
full
to
circle.
reclaiming the power of our discernment. Because
Yes.
it's through the use of our authentic discernment that we actually hear the needs of our body.
Yeah.
And it can be confusing. I mean, you and I have been doing this kind of inner development work for years. And still, I can sometimes get confused between the needs that I feel come up, if they're authentic to me or whether they're conditioned.
I feel like it's never done. It's always
Oh no.
consistent, like
Yeah, it's the spiral.
consistent work.
The
Yeah, right.
spiral.
That's
The
life on
spiral.
this planet. That's what we're here
But,
for.
and again, going back to the moon, this is why we work with the moon because we see with the moon, she's constantly moving. As we are constantly moving, we just don't feel it, but we're constantly in orbit. We're constantly circling around the sun. The moon's constantly moving around us. We're constantly meant to be shifting and growing and feeling and allowing and just cycling through it all. So
Exactly.
working with the moon is less about, oh, this moon's gonna let me release all of my baggage. You're like, yeah, and then next full moon we'll do it again.
Yeah. And then we'll collect some more and
And
then
then we'll do it
yeah.
again.
And then we'll do it again. That's what it's all about.
And we just remember that our healing journey or our living journey, our living on purpose journey living intentionally journey is not necessarily a linear from point A to point B. Just like everything in nature, it tends to be a wave and a spiral. And especially when we look at our life as a spiral, we might notice that we'll hit some of the same themes, but where we're at when we hit that theme isn't the same, right?
I love that.
That this one theme of like, for example, my core wound, my Chiron of like, I'm not good enough. I'm not blank enough, whatever it might be. I've experienced that in many iterations in my life. I probably will for the rest of my life to some standard of or another, but each time I do it, there's also this part of me that's like responds with yes, I am. Oh, but
Mm,
yes, I am. You know what I mean? And
hmm
so Whereas when I experienced this in my early 20s, it could have taken me out for a month. Now it's an hour of my day. You know what I mean? Or like five
Yeah.
minutes in the morning or whatever it might be. Um, the week leading up to my period, whatever it might be.
Yeah. So real. So real. But there's power in that to be like, oh wow,
Yeah.
like I just had that moment yesterday. I was like, wow, this thought spiral would have taken me out for
Yes.
a week, and now I've already bounced back, and I'm like, well, I'm channeling it into something where I can actually take action from it, or at least have a better mindset
And
about
that
it.
is so powerful. Like that
Huge.
literally is proof confirmation of, I'm going to use your word that you love so much, of growth. Growth.
Yeah,
It's
I
so
love it.
powerful. So yeah, so this Gemini full moon, we're gonna feel things because the moon always has us feel
Yes.
things. What's nice about this full moon is we might feel kind of distracted. We might feel a little bit um unmotivated. We might even be like, I just want to lay in bed and scroll at first. But then we'll also be doing that and being like, oh, this doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That
Yes.
will be the illumination part.
Yeah. Well, I
And
do
yeah.
want to just quickly add to that. Mercury is trine to Mars.
Ooh.
Not exact, but this gives us a lot of mental clarity and a mental boost. So I feel like
Yes.
what you're saying might happen, but then something's gonna click.
Exactly. Yep. You're
And you're
gonna
gonna
have
be
this
like,
moment. You're gonna be like, ah, this doesn't feel good. You're gonna want to like throw your phone, which I do
yeah.
often.
So there's supportive
Yeah.
energy with this,
Yes.
there's no
Yes.
harsh transits with this full
Yeah.
moon, which is lovely.
Yeah. So what you might just notice is the things that you use as like kind of distractions or the things that kind of feel like they're cluttering up your mind will probably feel like they're a bit more illuminated, but
Yeah.
that's all in the process of you seeing it so that then you can let it go or be like, "Oh, I'm doing this, but actually what I want to be doing is going for a walk with my dog right now or playing a game with my kids or meeting up with a
Yeah.
friend for a tea or whatever it might be." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is also so Gemini.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so some ways we can work with this moon. I mean, first and foremost is just kind of, especially with the retrograde energy, with Mars in retrograde and Mercury stationing direct. Um, like the rule of ours with retrogrades, which is review, refine, reassess, and I like rest. I think rest is another really good
That's
one for,
RE for sure.
yeah, another one for retrogrades. So just kind of reflect on some of the what feels kind of mentally cluttery or distracting for you. Give yourself some time to just be with it. And instead of going immediately into something that can create more mental clutter or distraction, just let yourself sit with the energies of the mental clutter and notice how when you just do that, it naturally dissipates.
Yeah.
It
I
just
love that.
naturally dissipates. You can also spend time just releasing distractions. So when you notice yourself wanting to distract yourself, instead, maybe go ground, look at a tree, water a plant, touch a plant, connect with someone, something,
Yeah.
connect. Um,
And get curious about
oh
it too.
yeah.
Like
Oh, I love that.
that's super Gemini. Instead of judging yourself, like, oh, I'm so distracted, just be like, why am I distracted right now? Is it because this
Yes.
task is hard? Is it because I don't
Yeah.
have enough resources to do it? Like, use it as a moment to get curious.
Is it
Or
because
if
I
it's
feel
just
like I'm
for,
missing out on something over there? You know, because sometimes
right,
that
right,
can be it too, especially when there's so much going on in the news cycle.
right.
Um,
Oof,
like there
hot
has
on the
been.
press.
Yeah, it can just feel like, oh, if I don't connect in, I don't know what's going on. That's actually a good thing for this for women. Let
Right.
yourself not know what's going on for a little while. That's
Yeah.
okay,
It's a moment.
because it wants you to find that inner clarity
Yeah.
instead of like looking outside ourselves to come inside
Right.
ourselves for it. Um, and that's another way to work with this full moon, which is to reclaim more of that inner discernment, that inner alignment, that like, what do I actually want? What really feels good for me? What actually piques my interest? You know what I mean? As opposed to just kind of going through in what's the word I'm looking for? Autopilot, where
Yes.
you're like not even
Right.
curious at all. You're not reflecting at all. And then I think one of the last things we can do to work with this full moon, and this to me just feels like the timing of it and the fact that it's a full moon in general, I think this is a really great full moon to honor your last year, to really
Mm,
take some time and honor all that you've accomplished. This is the harvest part of that full moon. Like really harvest all the treasures, all the fruits that you may have delivered, grown. delivered, eaten this last year because this is our last full moon of 2024. So maybe take some time and just write out like everything you've done, everything you've accomplished. Maybe even list out some things you don't want to take with you moving into 2025. Let it be an intuitive process for you, but this is a great full moon to honor yourself, honor this last year as well. Yeah.
That tickled my heart.
Oh, yay. Anything
Yeah.
you want to add in, Sarah?
No, I think you wrapped it up perfectly.
Okay,
Yeah.
amazing. Well, I love coming on video and having these conversations with you. And I hope all of you watching really enjoy what we're sharing about the moon. And if you resonate with what we're sharing in terms of the astrology and the energies, we will be back in a few weeks' time to share about the energy of the upcoming new moon in Capricorn, which will be at the end of December. And at that point, we might also be teasing some more information about our moon community we're currently creating. We have a gift for you all if you're interested in that. So we're just giving a little teases right now, but there'll be more information to come for our next moon video. And of course, moving on from there as well. So if you enjoy this type of content, please do all the things, subscribe, like, share, save. Also, please go and follow Sarah over at her channel, Hello Fluid Collective. She provides amazing
I do.
updates on like the astrology of the month ahead, different transits. So if you just like to be in the astrological know, go over, give her a follow, and
Thank you.
check out what she offers because it's really so supportive. And one thing I love about Sarah's astrology ahead is she always provides, and for those entrepreneurs, those small business owners out there, here's some ways you can work with this energy. So all my fellow solopreneurs out there, you're gonna want that. You're gonna
I
want that.
got you.
Yeah, yeah.
I got you.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope that you have an illuminative and supportive and aligning, really aligning full moon in Gemini. And if there's any way that we can support you, please reach out. Check out our
Visit
links.
Raquel's moon blog. There's journal prompts. There's a whole blog on there. So if you really want to just start writing, very Gemini journal, get over to her journal prompts on her website. They're amazing. It's how I found her in the first
Oh
place.
my gosh, thank you. I completely forgot about the moon blog. Yes, all of this
Cool.
and more is in the moon blog. So go check it out. Go check it out and subscribe. Subscribe because then you'll get it in your inbox every new moon, every full moon.
Beautiful.
All right, friends. Happy. I mean, I guess we'll see you again before the complete end of 2024, but I'm proud of us. We're doing
Yeah,
it. We're
we're
doing it.
doing it. Love you all.
All right, we'll see you next time. Bye, friends.
Bye.